All right, so like imagine we're back in high school biology class, but this time it's like a one-on-one session, No
Yeah.
tests or anything, just learning.
I like that.
Yeah. So today we're diving deep into this process that's like fundamental to life itself.
Okay.
Meiosis. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes.
It's all about how those reproductive cells, like the sperm and the egg are created.
Right.
And trust me, it's way more interesting than it might sound like at first.
Oh, absolutely. It's really quite fascinating when you get into it.
Yeah. So where do we start? What's like the first thing I need to know about this whole meiosis thing?
Well, the first thing to understand is that it's a special type of cell division.
Okay.
It's not like regular cell division, mitosis that's happening in your body all the time
Right.
to like make new cells for growth and repair and all that.
Yeah.
Meiosis is all about producing gametes.
Gametes.
Yeah, sperm in males and eggs in females.
Okay.
And these gametes are pretty special.
What makes them so special?
Well, they have half the number of chromosomes compared to like your regular body cells.
Half. Okay.
Yeah, remember you inherit one set of chromosomes from your mom and one set from your dad.
Right.
So your regular body cells have two sets, a total of 46 chromosomes.
Only 6. Okay.
But gametes, they only have one set, 23 chromosomes.
So wait, why do gametes need like half the number of chromosomes?
That's the brilliant part. When a sperm and egg meet during fertilization, they combine their chromosomes,
Okay.
creating a zygote with the full 46 chromosomes.
Right.
This ensures that each generation starts with the correct number of chromosomes.
Oh, okay.
If gametes also had 46 chromosomes, the zygote would end up with 92, and things would get pretty messy genetically.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's all about like having the number to make sure the right number is passed on to the next generation.
Exactly.
Okay, but how does it actually happen? How do you get from like a regular cell to these gametes with half the chromosomes?
It's like a carefully choreographed dance with two main acts, Meiosis I and Meiosis II.
Meiosis 1 and 2.
Okay.
2 acts. Okay.
Yeah. And just like any good dance, there's a lot of partnering up and separating going on. Partnering up, are we talking about the chromosomes here?
Exactly. In meiosis 1, the homologous chromosomes, one from mom, one from dad, they pair up.
Okay.
It's like finding their dance partners.
Homologous chromosomes. Remind me what those are again.
Think of them like a matching pair of shoes.
Okay.
One from each parent. They are similar in size and shape, and they carry genes for the same traits.
Okay.
But they're not identical.
Right.
You might have a gene for brown eyes on your mom's chromosome and a gene for blue eyes on your dad's chromosome.
Okay, I get it. So these homologous chromosomes, they pair up, and then what?
Then something amazing happens called crossing over.
Crossing over?
Yeah, it's like as if those chromosomes swap some of their genetic material,
Oh, wow.
like shuffling a deck of cards.
Okay.
This creates new combinations of genes, making each chromosome even more unique.
So it's not just a simple split. There's like mixing and matching going on.
That's cool. What happens after this chromosome shuffle?
Well, next, these shuffled pairs of chromosomes, they line up in the middle of the cell.
Okay.
And here's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
The way they line up is completely random.
Random.
Yeah, it's called independent assortment. Imagine flipping a coin for each pair to decide which side of the cell they go on.
So it's like another layer of randomness, adding to that genetic diversity.
You got it. This random alignment means that the daughter cells won't get the exact same combination of chromosomes from the mother and father.
Okay.
It's like a giant genetic lottery.
Wow.
And once they're all lined up, they get pulled apart to opposite ends of the cell.
So the chromosomes are separated, and now we have 2 cells.
Exactly. And each cell has half the number of chromosomes as the original cell.
Oh, okay.
But remember, we're not done yet. We still have meiosis II to go.
Oh, there's more. All right. So what happens in meiosis 2? Is it more shuffling and separating?
Meiosis II is kind of like a shorter, simpler version of meiosis I. Think of it as separating those shuffled decks of cards into individual hands.
Yeah.
This time, the sister chromatids within each chromosome separate, resulting in 4 cells.
So we end up with 4 cells each with a unique mix of genes thanks to all that shuffling and separating.
Precisely. And those 4 cells are the gametes ready to potentially create a new life.
Wow, this is incredible. It's like this beautifully orchestrated process, ensuring that each gamete is unique. It's no wonder we see so much diversity in the world.
Absolutely. But before we move on, let's talk a bit about what happens after meiosis.
Okay.
The process called gametogenesis, where those 4 cells actually become sperm and egg.
Okay, I'm ready for another lesson.
All right, well, in males, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Those 4 cells go through some changes, grow tails, and become sperm cells.
Right.
But in females, it's a bit more complicated.
Why is that?
Well, out of those 4 cells, only one actually becomes a mature egg cell or ovum.
Okay.
The other 3 are called polar bodies, and they kind of fade away.
Oh, why did that happen? Seems a bit unfair.
It's all about resources. The egg cell needs to be big and strong, packed with nutrients to support a potential embryo.
Okay.
So it gets most of the cytoplasm and resources during cell division, leaving very little for the polar bodies.
So it's like survival of the fittest, even at the cellular level.
Yeah, you could say that.
This whole process is mind-blowing.
It really is. And we've only just scratched the surface.
I bet.
There's so much more to explore, from the, intricate details of each phase of meiosis to the fascinating world of genetic variation.
I'm eager to learn more, but for now, I think I need a moment to just process all of this amazing information.
I hear you. It's a lot to take in. We'll take a short pause, and when we come back, we'll delve a little deeper into the implications of this incredible process called meiosis.
Sounds good. Okay, so we've covered like the basics of meiosis, this intricate dance of chromosomes
Right.
that creates these unique gametes.
Yes.
But I'm curious, like, what happens if something goes wrong during this whole process?
That's a great question. Like any complex process, sometimes there can be hiccups.
Yeah.
And in the case of meiosis, those hiccups can have some pretty significant consequences.
Like, what kind of consequences are we talking about?
Well, one of the most common errors is called non-disjunction,
Non-disjunction, okay.
where chromosomes don't separate properly during meiosis 1 or 2.
Okay.
It's like one of the dance partners trips and falls and messes up the whole routine.
So what happens when chromosomes don't separate correctly?
It can lead to gametes having an extra chromosome or missing one.
Okay.
And when these gametes are involved in fertilization, it can result in a zygote with an abnormal number of chromosomes.
So instead of the usual 46, the zygote might have 47 or 45.
Exactly. And this can lead to various genetic conditions.
Okay.
For example, Down syndrome is caused by an extra copy of chromosome 21.
That's pretty serious. Are there other examples of conditions caused by this non-disjunction?
Yes, there are a number of other conditions, some more severe than others. But here's an interesting twist. While non-disjunction is usually a bad thing in humans,
Right?
it can actually be beneficial in plants.
Really? How is that possible?
Well, plants can tolerate extra sets of chromosomes much better than animals can.
Okay.
In fact, many of the fruits and vegetables we eat are polyploids.
Polyploids.
Yeah, meaning they have more than 2 sets of chromosomes.
So like those juicy seedless watermelons I love are actually a result of messed up meiosis.
Exactly. Polyploidy can sometimes lead to larger fruits, increased yields, and other desirable traits in plants.
Wow, that's fascinating. So what might be an error in humans can actually be like an advantage in the plant world.
It's true.
It's amazing how nature works.
Yeah.
But going back to like non-disjunction in humans, is there any way to like predict or prevent these errors from happening?
That's a complex question.
Yeah.
There are some factors that can increase the risk of non-disjunction,
Okay.
like the mother's age, for instance.
Okay.
But ultimately, it's a random event that can happen to anyone.
So it's like a reminder that even with this like incredibly precise dance of chromosomes, there's always an element of chance involved.
Precisely. And it's this element of chance combined with the shuffling of genes during meiosis that makes each of us genetically unique.
Right. It really makes you appreciate the incredible diversity we see in the world. Speaking of diversity, I'm curious about those 8 million possible combinations you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Does that mean there are like 8 million different versions of each chromosome?
Not quite. Remember, those 8 million combinations are from independent assortment alone.
Okay.
The random way those chromosome pairs line up in the middle of the cell.
Right, right.
But we also have crossing over, which shuffles genes within those chromosomes.
Right, crossing over. Like adding even more spices to the genetic mix.
Exactly.
So how many different versions of a chromosome are actually possible when you factor in like both independent assortment and crossing over?
Well, the possibilities become almost limitless.
Wow.
And think about it, each chromosome has hundreds or even thousands of genes. And during crossing over, any of those genes can be swapped between the homologous chromosomes.
So it's like taking a deck of cards and shuffling it not just once, but like millions of times,
Exactly.
creating countless unique combinations.
Precisely. And this vast potential for genetic diversity is one of the reasons why sexual reproduction is so successful.
Okay.
It ensures that offspring are not identical clones of their parents, and it introduces variation into a population.
That makes sense. Variation is key to like adaptation and evolution, right?
Absolutely.
Those with beneficial gene combinations are more likely to survive and pass on their genes.
Precisely. And speaking of genes and chromosomes, there's a whole field of study dedicated to mapping them.
Mapping them.
Chromosome mapping.
Chromosome mapping, what is that? Sounds like some kind of treasure hunt for genes.
In a way it is. Scientists use various techniques to figure out the location of genes on chromosomes.
Okay.
This knowledge is crucial for understanding how genes are inherited,
Right.
identifying disease-causing mutations, and even developing gene therapies.
So it's like creating a genetic roadmap showing where all the genes are located.
Exactly.
That sounds incredibly complex.
It is complex, but incredibly important. Remember how crossing over can swap genes between chromosomes?
Yeah.
Well, the closer two genes are on a chromosome, the less likely they are to be separated during crossing over.
So by studying how often genes are inherited together, scientists can figure out their relative positions on a chromosome.
Precisely.
Like solving a genetic puzzle.
You got it. And this brings us to another fascinating aspect of genetics.
Okay.
Sex determination.
Yes, the X and Y chromosomes.
Exactly.
Tell me more about how these special chromosomes determine whether we're male or female.
In humans, females have 2 X chromosomes, while males have 1 X and 1 Y.
Right.
The Y chromosome is much smaller than the X and carries a specific gene called the SRY gene
Okay.
that triggers male development.
So if a sperm carrying an X chromosome fertilizes an egg, you get a female offspring.
Right.
And if a sperm carrying a Y chromosome fertilizes an egg, you get a male offspring.
Precisely. It's all down to that single chromosome difference.
And what about those other 44 chromosomes? Do they play any role in sex determination?
Not directly. They're called autosomes, and they carry genes for all sorts of traits, from eye color to height, but they don't determine our biological sex.
So the Y chromosome is like the ultimate trump card when it comes to sex determination.
You could say that, but it's important to remember that sex determination is a complex process, and there are variations and exceptions in nature.
Like what? Are there other ways to determine sex besides the X and Y chromosomes?
Absolutely. Some reptiles, for example, don't have sex chromosomes at all.
No sex chromosomes. Wow.
Their sex is determined by the temperature of the environment during embryonic development.
Wait, really? So the temperature of the sand where a turtle egg is buried can determine whether it hatches as male or female?
Exactly. It's a fascinating example of how different species have evolved different mechanisms for sex determination.
That's incredible. But even with these variations, the fundamental principle remains the same. Meiosis is the key process that ensures the continuation of life.
It really is.
This has been an incredible journey into the world of meiosis. Who knew there was so much complexity and wonder happening inside our cells?
It's true. And we've only just begun to explore the vast implications of this process.
Well, I'm definitely eager to learn more. I'm ready to dive even deeper into this fascinating world of genetics. But for now, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've learned so far. We've been on quite a journey, exploring like all these intricacies of meiosis.
We have.
From the pairing up of chromosomes to that like incredible genetic shuffling that makes each of us unique. It's truly awe-inspiring.
It really is. Meiosis is like this beautifully choreographed dance happening inside every one of us.
Yeah.
Dance that ensures the continuation and diversity of life.
It's mind-boggling to think that something so complex is happening constantly, like without us even realizing it.
I know.
But, with all this knowledge we've gained about meiosis and genetics, it makes you think about like the bigger picture too, the ethical implications of it all.
You're absolutely right. Our understanding of meiosis and genetics has opened up all these incredible possibilities, but it also comes with a responsibility,
Right.
to use this knowledge wisely and ethically.
For instance, we talked about how like errors in meiosis can lead to genetic conditions.
Right.
But now we have the ability to like screen for these conditions even before a child is born.
Yes.
Through prenatal genetic testing.
Exactly.
This can be incredibly empowering for parents, but it also raises a lot of ethical questions.
It does. What are the implications for individuals and families if they learn about a potential genetic condition? How do we ensure that this information is used responsibly and doesn't lead to discrimination or prejudice? These are all important conversations we need to have as a society.
Yeah. And then there's gene editing.
Oh, yes.
A technology that allows us to actually change the genetic makeup of an organism.
Wow.
It holds incredible potential for like treating genetic diseases.
Absolutely.
But it also raises concerns about like the potential for unintended consequences and like the idea of designer babies.
It's a slippery slope for sure. We need to carefully consider the ethical boundaries of gene editing.
Yeah.
And ensure that it's used for the benefit of humanity without crossing into territory that could have unforeseen and potentially harmful consequences.
It seems like the more we learn about meiosis and genetics, the more questions we have. It's both exciting and a little daunting at the same time.
I agree. But I think that's the beauty of science. It's a constant journey of discovery, And with each new discovery, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
Well said. And I think our deep dive into meiosis has been a perfect example of that.
It
It's been an
has.
incredible learning experience,
Yeah.
full of surprises and thought-provoking insights.
It really has been. It's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you. I hope you've gained a newfound appreciation for the intricate dance of life happening within each of us.
I definitely have. And to our listeners, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into this fascinating world of science. There's always more to discover.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.